Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1203B, and today's date is February 13th, 2017, and the title of the episode is Obama creating an army of agitators to go up against Trump? Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I just placed an interview on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. It is Danielle DiMartino Booth. She is a Fed insider. You can come over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It should bring you right to the video. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site, scroll down a little bit. You'll see it on the right-hand side. You can play it right on the site. Or you can go to NewsSentinel.com. Same thing, scroll down a little bit. Look over to your right-hand side. You can play the video right on the site. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, out in South Texas, we see an illegal immigrant from Mexico. And he was charged in connection with the attempted purchase of a grenade launcher and 3 AK-47s in Texas. Now, it remains unclear if the weapons were meant for a drug cartel or what they were going to use this for, but we can see that the ATF was down there and they arrested 31-year-old Oscar Freddy Garcia last week near Los Fresnos in Texas. And we see right now that here's a perfect case that Trump can use to say, listen, okay, this person was purchasing a grenade launcher. This is an illegal immigrant who came into the country illegally. What was he trying to do with this? And we can see right now, it doesn't matter if this was a patsy, if this was a setup, because the corporate media and the rest, they really got themselves in a bind right now because, as we said, the 72 individuals that were arrested were from the 7 different countries, and this came out of the Senate committee showing that, yes, these 72 individuals were arrested, even though the corporate media and the Judge Robart was saying, no, you don't have a case and this is untrue. We're starting to see that, yes, this is true. And we can see right now he can make a case and bring this in and say, yes, here we have an illegal that's trying to buy a grenade launcher. So what I'm saying is we need a temporary ban so we can put in betting to look at who's coming to the country and saying, okay, do these individuals have ties to drug cartels, to terrorists, to anyone else? And we can see right now that this is going to go against the Ninth Circuit Appeals Court because we can see at this point they didn't even cite the law. They kind of just decided not to even look at it. And we can see right now that Trump is moving forward with this en banc, and we'll have to see what happens with this. We see Maduro is out there. He is saying that he wants CNN out of his country. Why? Because they're spreading fake news. Well, CNN is getting kicked around all over the place for fake news, and they're continually trying to defend themselves, and sometimes they continually make it worse and worse for themselves. Now, we have to remember the elite, the central bankers, they started this whole fake news thing where they were out there because they thought, oh, Hillary lost the elections because of fake news. But we can see right now that they're trying to teach the young how to distinguish between real news and fake news. And they want to start doing this in elementary. They want teachers to start doing this. And here are some of their literacy lessons on fake news. The first one. A major news organization probably isn't headquartered in a house. Well, I have to say that newspapers in this country and many businesses in this country started in a house, in a garage. Many freelance journalists work out of their homes. So this is not necessarily true. The next point. Does it make you mad? Well, the truth, as we know, does make people mad. When you hear the truth, people get angry. When you hear lies, you feel really good because they make it so it doesn't really affect you, like everything is going your way. And people might be getting mad because they're looking at the lies from the corporate media saying, that makes me mad. The next point. If it's real, other news sites are likely reporting it. Really? And we know that the corporate media is scripted. I mean, all you have to do is look at Conan O'Brien. He takes the script the scripted news, and he goes all over the country and takes little snapshots of what they're saying, and they say the same exact thing because the entire news system is scripted. And just because other news sites have it doesn't mean it's true. Remember, propaganda can be distributed to all the news sites, but unless they have fact, unless they have links going back to the source, how do we know it's true? I mean, think back when they told us that, Assad used sarin gas in Syria in 2013. And it turns out that, oh, no, it wasn't him. It was the moderate rebels. Actually, remember in 2011, when they said the United States is not supporting Al-Qaeda in Syria, the uprising in Syria. And then it turned out that, yes, they were. And people pointed out to the fact that, well, wait a minute, they're Al-Qaeda. Why are we supporting Al-Qaeda? And that's when the government came out and said, oh, no, we're not supporting them. We're supporting the moderate rebels. The next point. What are fact-checking sites like Snopes and factcheck.org finding? Well, we know that Snopes and factcheck.org and PolitiFact, well, they are backed by the CIA, by Soros, and many other organizations. And it turns out that a lot of these fact-checking sites, they've been wrong. I mean, we have to understand what is going on here. They're trying to indoctrinate the children to look out for the truth and say it's fake news. And what the corporate media normally does with all of this is they use fake news to their advantage. They're citing this one thing where Obama said, what this news source said, Obama is signing an executive order to outlaw the Pledge of Allegiance in classrooms. And they're saying, see, it's not really from ABC. It was a duplicate site. This is something that's called poisoning the well. And poisoning the well is a fallacy where irrelevant adverse information about a target is preemptively presented to an audience with the intention of discrediting or ridiculing everything that the target person is about to say. So if the alternative media picks this up, they can say, see, they went along with this fake story, and now the alternative media is illegitimate. And this is why they put these things out there. They're hoping that the alternative media will pick up these ridiculous stories and spread it around. So this way they can say, see, it turned out to be completely fake, and all of these sites had it. And this is what they like to do. It's called poisoning the well. And there were other fake news stories out there that the corporate media had, that they published. Remember the famous aluminum tubes that were supposedly part of Saddam Hussein's nuclear arsenal? That was debunked. Remember the yellow cake from Niger? That was debunked also. Iraq's mobile biological weapons, once again, debunked, untrue. The biggest lie? Saddam Hussein had links to Al-Qaeda and the 9/11 attack. That wasn't true at all. So when we go back in time and we look at their stories that they've been putting out there, we can see right now that most of it is fake, phony, and false. But if you go back in time, the fact-checking sites will say those stories are true. I mean, remember when Obama came out and said the Affordable Care Act was going to be affordable? You're never going to lose your doctor. The fact-checking sites went and said, yes, this is true. You will not lose your doctor. The premiums will get lower. Again, a lie. It wasn't true once again. Now, Apple's Tim Cook, he is looking at fake news, and he's saying it is a problem. It's killing people's minds. And what they want to do is they want to throttle different news stories. So tech firms, they want permission to throttle newspeak from sources they deem fake. And the so-called high-quality journalism will be promoted. So they're going to make the decision. Now, free speech, freedom of the press says nothing about this whatsoever. The point of freedom of the press and freedom of speech is for people to decide what they want to read and what they don't want to read. It's not for a company to tell you what's true, what's not true. It's not for a teacher to tell you this is fake, this is false. It's not for a government to tell you what to read and what not to read by giving it points or scores or hiding it. Freedom of the press and freedom of speech is the freedom to have all of it out there. And then you as a person decide, well, let me look this up. Is this really true? Let me do a little bit of research. And that's freedom of the press, because once they start controlling all of this, well, it's no longer free. It's controlled. It's controlled press. It's controlled speech. And actually, if they block it, then it's permitted. This is what we permit. This is what we don't permit. And of course, they're saying, well, we have to do it in the framework of free speech and freedom of the press. There is no framework. The people decide what they want to read and what they don't want to read. And guess what? It won't destroy your mind. It'll actually make you think. It'll actually make you look at it and say, you know something? I don't believe this. Let me look a little bit further. Let me look at different sources. And you can start putting the pieces together. Now, things are really starting to go crazy out there, because people are just not thinking anymore. We have Sarah Silverman. It appears that she's losing her mind since Trump was elected. And we can see that all these individuals are trying to relate everything that they're looking at and everything they're doing back to Trump. It's his fault. And she was calling for a military coup to overthrow Trump earlier this month. And she started to tweet out about these markings on sidewalks. It's in orange, and she was saying that, oh my God, look at this, there's swastikas all over the place, drawn by neo-Nazis. She said, I was walking to get coffee and saw these all over the sidewalk. Is this an attempt at swastikas? She said. Now, this is a marking that the electrical company uses to mark on the ground. And we can see that this is like a complete fake story that she's putting out there. This has nothing to do with Nazis. It has nothing to do with anything. These are markings that they use. But we can see what all these individuals are doing. They're pushing it out there that everything that's being done now is related to Trump, when he's really not doing anything. Actually, if you look at all the violence, you look at all the hate, you look at everything that's going on, you can see that it's done by the opposition, the people that didn't get their way. And actually, what's very interesting is that everyone is comparing Trump to Hitler and Nazis. And a woman stepped forward who was born during the period of World War II. And her name is Marion Ingeborg Andrews. She goes by Inga. She was born in Dusseldorf, Germany in 1940 during Hitler's reign. And she said that everyone has it wrong. She said Trump is nothing like Hitler at all. And she said what's going on in this country, the U.S., she says it gives me chills. Just because a leader wants order doesn't mean that they're like a dictator. She says what reminds me more of Hitler than anything else isn't Trump. It's the destruction of freedom of speech on the college campuses, the agendas fueled by the professors. That's how Hitler started. Hitler went to the youth. He pulled in the youth to miseducate them, to brainwash them. She says it's happening today, and we do see this. And she said there are huge similarities of what we're seeing now today that we saw back during that period of time. So whatever the corporate media is out there saying, it's actually the opposite. All these kids, all these college campuses, they're being brainwashed. They're being miseducated, just like they were during the Nazi regime in World War II when we had the brown shirts. And they were violent. And we're seeing it today. We also are hearing that Obama could be organizing violent anti-Trump protesters just miles from the White House. Paul Sperry writes, the former President Obama is setting up a shadow White House in Washington, D.C. for organizing anti-Trump protests nationwide and rebuilding the Democratic Party. And what he's saying is right now is that Obama has an army of agitators numbering more than 30,000 who will fight Trump, who will create chaos and havoc on the streets. And Obama will command them from the bunker less than 2 miles from the White House. And we can see that many people are saying that, we could have a color revolution in this country where they get these individuals together and they create chaos, riots, and it spreads. Now, this is what they're trying to do. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. But we can see how their agenda is being pushed. We can see what they're trying to do. Now, out in China, we see that Trump has taken the side of Abe, who is the Prime Minister of Japan. And we can see that China is very upset about this because they've taken Japan's side about the Senkaku Islands, about the whole South China Sea. And we understand, because we talked about this before, about World War II and the Cairo Declaration, how the United States gave this entire area back to China and took it away from Japan. But we can see right now that it doesn't really matter, because the United States government central bankers, the neocons, they still want a war with these countries. They're still trying to provoke. They still are pushing their agenda. They are not going to stop until they get what they want. And they're going to try to maneuver Trump into this. We see that North Korea, as we know, they fired a ballistic missile right after the United States fired a ballistic missile into the Pacific Ocean. North Korea decided to fire one of their ballistic missiles. Now, again, they're trying to have Trump react to this. And they're testing Trump. They want him to do something. And we'll have to see how this all plays out. Hopefully, he sees what's going on and he backs off, because if they continually push him with Iran, with China, with North Korea, they could get the world into the next war. And we can see out in Ukraine, they are pushing their agenda in that region to go after Russia. So what we have in Ukraine right now, where the war is heating up there, they're trying to pull in Russia. It's not working out very well. We have North Korea, who fired a ballistic missile. Do we actually have proof of this? No, the corporate media is out there. South Korea is out there saying that, yes, we've seen this. But do we have absolute proof of what this was all about? Because last time they were launching a satellite and they said, well, this satellite is a missile and it could carry a nuclear weapon. And they just try to build this up to make everyone believe that they're coming to get us. And they're trying to build the provocations up in the South China Sea. So we can see all of this is happening at once. Now, out in Libya, we see that the UN unity government, they're very angry because the other governments that are in Libya, they've created a National Guard, which will rival the National Guard that the unity government has. And they're very angry about this. What's happening here is that governments are taking power. There's a fight going on. General Haftar has joined up with Russia. Russia is supporting General Haftar. They're creating a National Guard. They're going up against the unity government. The unity government was created by the United States and the coalition forces and the UN to say, here, Libya, here's your government. The people didn't get to pick. And now we can see right now that things are changing. And most likely, the days of the unity government, well, they're numbered right now. And it looks like they're going to be thrown out. We see that the U.S. Navy has decided to deploy 2 more Arleigh Burke-class destroyers in the Red Sea to fend off attacks from the Yemeni Houthi rebels. We also see the U.S. Navy is deploying the U.S. Laboon and the USS Truxtun to supplement the naval group that is already located in the sea between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. And the decision comes about 2 weeks after the U.S. dispatched another Arleigh Burke destroyer, the USS Cole, to Bab al-Mandab Strait, the entrance to the Red Sea. So we can see there's a lot of ships being brought into this region. We see the George H.W. Bush strike group has begun airstrike operations in Syria right now. And of course, they're saying they're going after the Islamic State. And once again, we know the United States government, central banks, the neocons, they're not going after the Islamic State. The only time they go after those areas is for a mop-up mission. Otherwise, they're still trying to push their goal in the region. We see the Pentagon, well, they got caught fudging airstrike data. The latest revelation revolves around the database of airstrikes maintained by the U.S. Air Force Central Command. And we see the Military Times decided to actually investigate whether the summaries are in fact reliable. And guess what they found? The U.S. military stats on deadly airstrikes are completely wrong. Thousands have gone unreported. And as they note in their exclusive investigation, in 2016 alone, U.S. combat aircraft conducted at least 456 airstrikes in Afghanistan that were not recorded. And when they looked at this, they see that this is throughout Iraq, it's in Syria, it's in Libya. And we can see right now that when we look at this, well, they lied. They are lying to the people. And most alarming is the prospect that this data has been incomplete since the war on terrorism began in October of 2001, which means they were never fighting terrorism. So to put this in plain English, until proven otherwise by a thorough audit conducted by an independent party, everything that the military has said about deaths, dollars, and drones during the never-ending war on terror should be assumed to be false, because they just lied. They weren't counting all of it. Why? That's the big question. Because this wasn't a war on terror. This was a war on the people of these countries. To take control of these countries, to have regime change, and to keep it. To keep these countries using the dollar for their oil sales. To keep the central bank system operational. We see that they're continually pushing out the idea that Assad used chemical weapons on the Aleppo assaults. When the Syrian armed forces were taking Aleppo, they said they were using coordinated efforts and dropping chemical bombs in this area. Now, the question is, why would they do that? They had Russia behind them. The terrorists were surrendering. Aleppo fell. They took back their city. What would be the purpose of using chlorine gas? They didn't need it. And why would they use it anyhow? It makes no sense. Actually, what was happening during this period of time, the terrorists were desperate. The terrorists were losing. And they used chemical weapons because it was proven that the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, they had access to chlorine gas and they used it in the past. And they've become desperate. Remember, they are terrorists. They've imprisoned people. They cut people's heads off. People have said it has been a disaster living under terrorism. And the people are very happy that these individuals are gone. Tulsi Gabbard was out there saying, this is true. All of it's true. And we can see right now these neocons, the elite, well, they're still trying to push their fictional stories on the American people. And we can see that they're losing the battle. They're not gaining traction with any of this. And at this point, we have to understand that they're going to become desperate as we move into this year, because they're already starting the story with the economy falling apart, blaming it on Trump. That's not going to be enough. Because how do they explain all the countries dumping the treasuries? Well, they're blaming it on Trump right now, but eventually people are going to wake up and say, well, wait a minute. This is not why. It's not because of Trump only. It's because of what the central banks have done. The central banks have destroyed everything. And these countries that we're in, well, the people are fighting back. And this is why they're going to become desperate. This is why they're going to try to get us into war. This is why we're going to see events. Because everything is coming down around them. And this is when they will react. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.